Wonderful. And thank you all again for being here. We're really excited to share firsthand experience with all of you and answer any questions that you have at the end, or you can chat them in the presentation as we're talking. Hopefully we can answer them then at the end. For those of you who may not be aware, ISEP is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to provide accessible and affordable international experiences for everyone. Our programs are immersive and authentic, and we really focus on intercultural engagement with host communities. ISEP offers semester, full year, and summer programs, and we have a network of over 300 universities in over 50 countries. The two main types of programs that we offer are exchange and direct programs. Direct programs have a specific program fee and allow for flexible housing and meal options. And you're also guaranteed a placement when applying for direct programs as long as you meet the eligibility requirements. ISEP exchange programs are a little different. You pay your home university's tuition, housing, and meal costs. You can list up to 10 programs on your application that you would want to attend, and that would be a good academic fit for you, and placements are dependent on exchange space. Now, I'm sure health and safety is a big concern for many of you, especially with regards to COVID-19. So I wanted to let you all know that ISEP students receive health insurance, 24/7 emergency services and help from an ISEP student services coordinator. In addition, there are usually some type of on-site health facilities and support services available to students, and there's often single room accommodations at many of our sites as well. In the event that your program is canceled because of COVID-19, ISEP has policies in place to protect you, and we'll put a link here in the chat for you to review these policies, or you can always send us an email later on asking for that information. Once you're ready to apply, you can start by creating an ISEP account at www.isep.org/apply. From there, you'll be put in touch with our very knowledgeable advising team, and you'll go over your goals for study abroad, and we'll suggest programs that might be a really good fit for you. Your advisor will also be able to walk you through the application process. And all of our ISEP student advisors will be available at the end of the presentation. We'll have meeting rooms available for you to ask specific questions. So from here, I'll turn it over to Rory again to introduce our wonderful panelists.
Thank you so much, Jolene. So we're so excited to have our 4 panelists today joining us. You may not be able to see my face at the moment, but more importantly, you can see theirs because they're really who you want to hear from anyway. So we have Danielle Edwards joining us from University of North Colorado in the US, who studied abroad at University of Roehampton in London in the UK. We have Nikki Loseff, who studied abroad at who attends San Diego State University in the US and studied abroad with ISEP in Ghana. And Danielle Saenz from Fort Hays State in the US, who studied abroad in Morocco through ISEP. And we have Emily Wood from University of Wyoming, who studied abroad at Vilnius University in Lithuania. So welcome to all of our panelists. We're so excited to hear directly from you about your experiences. And to start off, I wanted to ask all of you kind of a big question, but why did you choose the destination and program you did, and why did you choose to go through ISEP? And I thought, maybe Nikki, I thought you could maybe start us off on what that research process was like and how you landed on ISEP.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I found out about ISEP through, my school obviously partners with you guys at our study abroad fair. And I remember the first thing one of my study abroad counselors was saying, if you really want like an independent experience, go with ISEP. Like a lot of the other programs are more kind of handheld, like they'll really keep you in a group, but in ISEP, you really get into the culture and you're not on your own, but you definitely figure things out for yourself. And I've traveled before and I'm very independent, so that was really attractive to me. And yeah, I was planning on going to a different country, but because the visa didn't work out, I ended up going to Ghana. And I was really grateful because it was super late in the semester that I applied. I think it was like the end of October or November to study abroad in January. And I was able to get in my application really quickly and study abroad a few months later. So I was super appreciative of that.
That is such a cool, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that that's one thing that another one of our alums has mentioned too, is that with ISEP, they were able to come up with a study abroad experience in a really quick amount of time and make it work and come together fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And also that that aspect that you mentioned of it being more, I would say it also takes a student who is, I think an ISEP student is also somebody who does like the independence and seeks that out and wants support, but also wants that freedom of really customizing their experience and making it what they want. And I love that you shared that. And it's nice because an ISEP experience is really landing you in that country and immersing you in the program. So thanks so much for sharing that, Nikki. I'm wondering, Daniel, what made you decide on Morocco and why did you go through ISEP?
Yeah, basically I was really interested in the Middle East, but I was also really interested in the French languages. So it was actually between France and Morocco. But the more and more I dug into Morocco, it just seemed for me like I could have the best of both worlds. I can learn about the Middle East and North Africa while also practicing my French. And I also really, just kind of as I researched their program, like I was really into international studies. I just was really happy with what I was reading about. And so that's how I ended up there.
That's wonderful. And having that language learning experience too as part of your time abroad. And we'll have to ask you, there's a million questions. I think Morocco is such an unusual place to study abroad. And I think that's one thing that about, actually, all of you chose really, I think some more less common destinations too for study abroad, which is very neat. And Emily, I wanted to ask you too about your choosing your program in Lithuania and why you went with ISEP.
Yeah, so when I was looking, first of all, I knew I wanted to study abroad and university. So my university has a pretty big study abroad office and a lot of programs that they partner with. So I was trying to find a program that was within my price range, that I could afford and still do a lot of different experiences beyond just the study abroad part. And what I did was an ISEP exchange. So I just used the scholarships from my university and paid them to my university, and I was able to go to Vilnius in Lithuania. So that was just a really easy way to pay for it and afford all of that without having to go beyond or take out loans or anything like that. And then as far as choosing Lithuania, my degree was in international studies with a focus on Europe and the former Soviet Union. And I really wanted to go somewhere where there weren't a lot of other Americans, because Europe is such a popular place to go for Americans to study abroad. And just looking at the different programs that they have, I listed my top choices were all in more Eastern Europe, because I figured that most Americans wouldn't go there. And there were only maybe 2 or 3 other American exchange students at Vilnius University when I was there for that full year. So I really did get a chance to immerse myself in the Lithuanian culture and not surround myself with people who are like me the whole time.
I think that's awesome that you were attracted to this idea of studying somewhere that was going to be so different than the culture that you've grown up in. And so I love that you kind of went out on a limb, but also that it introduced you to a part of the world that was really important to your international relations degree and studies. That's awesome. So And next, I wanted to, Danielle, I'd like to hear a little bit about what landed you at Roehampton and why you decided to study abroad with ISEP.
Sorry, I had myself on mute there. Sorry.
No problem. It happens to all of us.
So I picked ISEP because I know a lot of people previously mentioned that they made a really quick decision to study abroad because it really wasn't in my game plan to study abroad. But I found that my senior year, I only had to take one class to graduate. And so I thought, well, I could use my fall semester to study abroad. So I made a really quick snap decision my senior year to study abroad. And so I was thinking of UK because I thought that was just a natural fit for my major. And I picked Roehampton because it was close. It's really commutable to London, and I really wanted to be in the city, but not like a commuter situation. I really wanted a community, and Roehampton was just a really good fit for me personally.
That is awesome. I wanted to, so I was gonna answer this one live for Daniel about how much French did he, oh, okay. Okay, all right, it looks like that one was already answered. Okay, that's okay.
Rory, I think it's still a good question to ask. I think you should go ahead and ask it.
Okay, awesome. So Daniel, we had a question from Clarissa on how much French did you hear while you were studying abroad in Morocco?
Actually, a fairly substantial amount. The student body was pretty multilingual. So while there were students that were mainly spoke Darija in English, a great deal of them could speak a lot of different languages. I met people who could speak English, Spanish, or English, French, Amazi, which / Berber, and basically all you had to do was just ask them, like, can I, practice with you, and they would be able to.
Oh, that's awesome. That they were so willing to speak to you in French too. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of nice because I was taking Arabic class, so I was also trying to learn Arabic, and they were more than happy to sort of alternate back and forth depending on what I wanted to do for the day. But if you study abroad in Morocco, they'll be pretty helpful, and they'll actually be pretty excited to practice languages with you. They really like it when you try to learn their native tongue.
And did you have that experience? So I imagine that you had your experience even just going out to local markets and just in kind of casual settings when you were out and about?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting because that's when I got to sort of read the room and kind of see like who spoke what and where. Mm-hmm. So where I was, it was sort of a not safe haven, but sort of like a more isolated part, more touristy part of Morocco. So a lot of the people who saw me spoke French. Very few people did not speak French. But when I went to like other towns like Fez, which was an hour away, that's when it was like less French speakers and a lot more like speaking Darija and Arabic.
Oh, how neat. Daniel, I did have a question for you. I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about a moment in your study abroad experience that has really stuck with you since returning back from your program.
Really, for me, like the top moment that stuck with me was going to the Sahara. I'm from rural Kansas where there's like it's just wheat fields everywhere. There's like nothing. And then I don't know. I almost started to cry right there in the moment because I was actually in the Sahara Desert and getting to see the sunset and actually experience this like large, gigantic desert.
Kind of a spiritual moment to be around something so immense like that and think. Did you ever think you'd go to Morocco?
It was honestly no, like I just didn't stop to think about it. It was actually after browsing through ISEP's program, so I'm like, this sounds really interesting. And that's when I started to kind of delve into it. I think I want to go to this country. And even when I talk to most people today, they're like, Morocco? You chose Morocco? And I'm like, yeah.
for
Just
good
felt right.
reasons. Yeah, I think just to have that openness, because you never know where study abroad's going to take you. It might be, you might end up studying somewhere a little bit out, there's something about it that drew you in, and it might not be what you expected at first where you end up going. I also wanted to ask Emily to share one really lasting memory and pivotal experience from her time abroad.
Yeah, so I have so many stories that I could tell, but one of them was that I became a little bit involved with the hiking club at Vilnius University, which was open to just anyone in the community, honestly. But so we would go on these short weekend trips where we just hike or cross-country ski, or we went on a rowboat trip, was the first one that I went on. And it was just a wonderful community of people to become involved with, because they were all so friendly and welcoming, and they would just sing all these hiking songs the whole time. And then they asked me, do you have any hiking songs in the US? And I don't have an answer to that. I taught them row, row, row your boat when we were on the rowboat trip, but I don't have any hiking songs. But we would go into very rural parts of Lithuania, and it was just walking into a completely different world, because I was living in the capital, which isn't a huge city. I think it's 500,000 people, so it's not a giant city. It's very comfortable, but in the very rural areas, it's almost like going into an old National Geographic magazine, where there are these old houses and they don't have indoor plumbing or running water, things like that. So there are people baking bread. The families are baking bread in this giant wooden stove in the middle of the house. And we would just learn and talk to these people and use the sauna. So just a lot of those outdoor program or hiking club trips were very memorable, because I would learn all about the traditional culture and the history of Lithuania and some traditional dances, and really got a feel for what the people were like.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that you really immersed yourself in the local culture. And I think that's one of the ways that I think we tend to really connect with people, is through things like song and dance, and almost these memories that we've had during our childhood, like the fact that you were teaching them like little songs like row, row, row your boat, and that they were teaching you those. That was such a cool experience. I guess I'll open it up to, like, anyone else want to share an experience where they really felt like they connected with the local culture? I know Danielle and Emily talked a little bit about that. I'd love to hear from anyone else who'd like to share.
I can share something real quick.
Yeah.
When I actually got into classes, I happened to accidentally get myself into a class that was meant for, it was like the capstone thesis for the theology students. And I had managed to get in, apparently based on my GPA, which was fabulous, but I didn't realize that it wasn't something that it wasn't like my other class that had like 3 or 4 Americans in it. I was completely on my own. And it was just this like wave of, I don't know how to, like, I didn't know like the terminology. I didn't know you had to click into class and stuff like that. And so I really met a really lovely friend who really showed me the ropes on how to do school in the UK. And so then what we did was we took Fridays together, and we would just explore the city, and she would show me what she liked and things that like tourists didn't go to, that was like very much like holes in the wall, and like things that only a local who had been there their whole lives would really like enjoy. So we had like this really lovely Indian that like you wouldn't think anything of it, but it was like the best Indian that I had there. So it was really nice meeting a fellow classmate who was willing to like really help me with like schoolwork, because schoolwork is quite different in their grading and what they ask for. So it was really nice to have somebody that could just tell me without having to, you know, go to a professor's office hours and kind of be intimidated. So
definitely. I think that that's one thing, is that you also are transitioning and adapting to, in some cases, a different education system when you study abroad. And it's so nice that you had a local that became a friend that helped show you the ropes. Danielle, I also wanted to ask you a little bit about how you feel like after study abroad, you were able to grow professionally and in your career and your academic aspirations.
So I originally, so first I became an ISEP blogger, which was a really interesting experience, because I thought, oh, I want to do travel writing. That is something I really, really, really want to do. And it really showed me how to be observant to the locals, the surroundings, what somebody who has never done this before might need to know or be like surprised by. And so it really made me aware of like going in with fresh eyes. And so that was a really cool experience. But also, I happened to actually get hurt while studying abroad. It wasn't anything major, but I did have to go to accident and emergency, their version of the ER. And while I was there, I realized their healthcare system is really top notch. Like, I got through really quickly, and it was really affordable, and they were just really, it was a much quicker process than I had experienced in the US. And so I realized, oh, what is healthcare systems like in other countries and stuff like that. So I'm actually applying for my master's in public administration to do comparative, to research comparative health systems, because this really opened my eyes to how different the US's healthcare system is to the world's healthcare, and I really want to do further research on that. So it really opened my eyes to a thing that I never even considered doing academically.
That is wonderful, Danielle. That's really inspiring. And I think that that's something that I've noticed too in my travels, is these different comparing systems between the US and the country that you're traveling to. And that's so exciting. And I think now's an amazing time, definitely a very necessary time to be studying that. I did want to open it up to everyone too to ask. We have a question from our lovely audience, from Camilla, on how did you research the universities you ended up going to or went to, and what other kind of information did you look up in that process? Did you all look at rankings? Did you use another?
I can start with this one.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, so I actually did all of the research on the ISEP website. They had there was so much about this university and about Ghana, like the whole country, because it was just like the program I saw listed. And there are several other universities in Ghana, but this was the biggest one, and it had my program. And once I kind of decided on it, I just basically went directly to University of Ghana's website to learn more about it there. And I found everything I needed. But when I was getting started, everything that I used was on the ISEP website. And I could compare this university to other ones I was deciding on that were also on ISEP's website, because the format was super user-friendly. And that was how I did all my research in the beginning.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. I have a really great question here. Sorry. So the question is from one of our attendees. What advice would you give to students who maybe have not considered these non-traditional locations? So in particular, this one is addressed to Nikki and Daniel, and also to Emily. Perhaps they don't even know where these countries are in the world. And so what would you say to them about choosing somewhere that's they might not have ever heard of before, or don't know where to get started?
I would just say to dig a little deeper into your major, for example, because maybe it's like you said, they may not know where it is on a map, but then when browsing through ISEP's catalog, they might realize that a certain school in the middle of a different country might have exactly what they've been looking for academically.
Yeah, and I would add to that, just you have all the list of countries where ISEP has programs, or the map. I don't remember exactly what's on the website. And just look at some place that you've never heard of before and maybe put that on your list to see if they have something that you're interested in, or if there's nature that you would love to explore, like if they have mountains or forests or something like that. And then really just try it out, apply for it, because you don't know what, if you don't know what to expect, you're not going to be disappointed. Even though I picked Lithuania, or that was one of the ones on my list, I really didn't know anything about Lithuania going into it. So it was just an opportunity to learn more and just start from zero and explore everything that there was around me.
I have to say, to the student who asked this question, I can really identify, because I speak Spanish, and I was planning on going to Spain because I wanted to take all my classes in Spanish and get better at the language. And obviously Spain's one of the most common study abroad destinations for American students. And so when I picked Ghana, like pretty soon after, I just felt so excited, because I was thinking I'll have many opportunities. I mean, I've never been to Europe either, but I think I'll be able to go to Europe at some point, whereas Africa, like, it hadn't really crossed my mind. It's obviously not as popular, as common as a destination. And I'm so happy I picked that, because not only like were my eyes open to a whole nother world, but now I have friends in Ghana, and like when the restrictions are open, that's probably the first place I'm going to travel to. And if I had just stuck with, you know, somewhere in Europe or Australia, anywhere English speaking, I never would have had this opportunity. And so I'm really grateful that I went, you know, somewhere a little more out of the box. And I definitely had people saying like, where's Ghana? Like, never even heard of it, which it was a little, I thought was embarrassing, because, you know, it's a big country, but
yeah. And now you get to open them up and also expose the people in your circle once after your study abroad into what Ghana is, and share those insights. So that is, I think, an amazing thing about going somewhere a little bit unconventional, is you get to really come back and educate the people around you and that country, and let them know that it's somewhere that people should go to more often.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one more question before we then open up the rooms for our different attendees to get some time to ask questions directly to our student advisors. So we did have one last question, which I think is a really good one, which is, how can you meet people and make friends and get involved while abroad? Anyone have some tips?
I can speak to that a little bit. Even before I left the US, the University of Roehampton had a student page on Facebook that people could talk to each other, which was really helpful. And one of my now dearest friends reached out to a couple of us, and we started a group chat. And so we got really close a week or two before we actually left collectively to the UK. And so when I came, I already pretty much had a set of American friends that could get explore together, that I wasn't just walking in blind without like being completely alone. So it was really lovely. So, you know, I encourage anybody, because I connect with my fellow Americans. But then also the University of Roehampton has a really lovely sustainability program and club, and I was able to join their volunteer program and actually take care of their chickens that they have on campus. And so I got to really learn about sustainability, but also really be a part of the university in a different context and more of a in an environmental way. And it was just really interesting being in urban school, but having that agricultural aspect within it. So it just felt like I was getting the green spaces, but also the city at the same time. And it was just a really lovely match.
That's fantastic. I love that I think one thing that I've noticed with all of your experiences is that you really launched yourself into them and you didn't hold back. Emily, did you have something to add on that?
Yeah, definitely pay attention to posters or Facebook events that are going on, I would almost always look at different Facebook events that were going on in my area, because just Vilnius as a capital city and the university had so many different film showings or clubs or dances or fun things going on. So I would just go to those and meet people there. And I actually, through those, I discovered a kind of a youth club center where I ended up going to quite regularly for different dancing lessons or different just fun events. And I met a lot of both Lithuanians and a few other foreign students, volunteers as well, where we just did acro yoga together or all sorts of things. And all of those events actually were free, so that was even better.
That's awesome. We do have a couple other questions in the Q&A. Let's see, there's so many good ones.
One of the questions was about the difficulty of the classes and how people adjusted to the different education systems. So were the classes hard, and yeah, how did you adjust?
I can go for this one. So most of the classes I was taking were like within my major, what I'm studying here, but then I was taking a few electives, and for me, they made sure like you're at the right class level and everything for getting credit and, you know, just where you're at in your studies. But I found that all of my classes had group chats. So like if I was ever struggling, I could message someone and say like, just, you know, what's the homework or what are we expected to do today? And everyone was super welcoming. I think all of my classes but one, I was the only American. And in some of those classes were lectures of like 100 people. And obviously I stuck out like a sore thumb, but everyone like, you know, people were so friendly and wanted to get to know me. They wanted to help me out. Like I always had someone saving a seat for me, and the professors all knew me. I definitely couldn't hide, but I think it was good because it got me really engaged in classes and in the material too.
That's wonderful, Nikki. That's a great point. Are there any more questions we have before turning it over?
Yeah, we have a question about what it was like to arrive in the country and get accommodated in housing and everything. So just what the arrival process was like. I know that can be a really nervous time for everybody, so I get that question.
I can speak to it insofar as in the UK, Brexit was happening during this time. So it was really uncertain what visa information you needed, whether you needed your separate visa or if you could get by on your passport and talk to somebody at the gate. So for me, there was a lot of uncertainty, but the University of Roehampton was really good about updating us about what we needed, and they had people meet us at the airport. So it was a really smooth and easy process because I was really anxious because this was the first time I was flying by myself. So I was really nervous that, you know, I would get lost or I wouldn't know what to do. And it was really seamless. And it turned out I didn't have to worry about anything at all because they picked us up from the airport and drove us to the university. And then they processed all of our information and got us into our dorms. And so for me, it was a really seamless process, even with Brexit happening. So it was just really lovely.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Danielle.
Yeah, and I just want to add, my experience was very simple, I guess, because at Vilnius University, they actually, before you arrive, they kind of pair you with a local student who can answer all your questions and help you out. So I forget what they call buddy. I think it's a buddy. My buddy picked me up from the airport and kind of brought me to where I'd be staying, my dorms, and kind of helped me navigate the very basics of arriving and figuring out how to get transportation and where to go. So that was really helpful.
That's awesome to have that kind of support in that buddy system too, to walk you through it. That makes such a difference. So I'm going to turn it over to Jolene now to explain. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us today. We really appreciated your insights, and you evoked a lot of questions in our audience, so you all did a fantastic job.